This is CBC Here and Now.
We're anxious to have some signal that there would be an Atlantic bubble, and we know that people will be sitting home over the Easter break, booking vacations. And
the Atlantic bubble is set to reopen next month, but what about opening up to the rest of Canada? The tourism industry says it's in big trouble.
The price of gas in St. John's jumped nearly 5 cents a litre overnight. We're going to talk to some people to see how they're coping.
Well, they're a lot, but you got to get gas.
Seem to be steady climbing, really, these days.
I'm Jeremy Eaton. I'll have that story coming up on Here and Now.
A real mixed bag of precipitation on the way over the next 24 hours. We've got heavy snow and heavy rain on the way.
Welcome to Here and Now. I'm Carolyn Stokes. Peter is off for a couple of days. We'll start with the pandemic. There is one new case of COVID-19 today as the province announces plans to reopen the Atlantic bubble. So let's start with today's case. It's a man between the age of 20 and 39 in the Eastern Health region. He's tested positive. The case is related to international travel. There are 34 active cases of COVID-19 in the province, all of them in the Eastern region. There are 2 people in hospital and 1 is in intensive care. Well, as we mentioned, Newfoundland and Labrador is preparing to rejoin the Atlantic bubble by April 19th. If all goes according to plan, Atlantic residents could once again move freely within the 4 provinces without having to self-isolate after leaving or returning home. Here and Now's Mark Quinn has more.
Crowded airports. They're a distant memory for some now, but Premier Andrew Furey says if things go well, it could happen again. Today, all 4 Atlantic Canadian premiers have agreed to take steps to restart travel. They're looking at April 19th as the target date to reopen the Atlantic bubble. Furey says it's urgent for those who depend on tourism.
They were anxious to have some signal that there would be an Atlantic bubble, and we know that people will be sitting home over the Easter break, booking vacations and looking and planning for their summers.
Of course, the reopening is conditional upon COVID-19 case numbers remaining low, containment of outbreaks, and ongoing advice from Atlantic Chief Medical Officers of Health. But if things do keep going well, all of Newfoundland and Labrador could be in Alert Level 2 by April 10th, and Furey says that could mean an even earlier Atlantic bubble.
Of course, it'll have to go with the agreement of public health in our province and the other 3, but right now the CMHOs are aligned and in agreement with the fact that the epidemiology should be good for the middle of April. And if things change, of course, we'll have to adapt as we did back in November.
And I'm all for it. We need it.
The Progressive Conservative Party says it's in favor of reopening the bubble as long as public health comes first, and it says other changes should be considered too.
We're still looking at rotational workers, and we still have kids in high schools who can't play sports together. So, I mean, hopefully the data that allows for the opening of Atlantic bubble will allow us to address other issues here in the province as well.
The NDP has a concern as well. Leader Alison Coffin told CBC she worries that Furey's moving beyond what's expected of a caretaker premier with his involvement in travel and tourism issues. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, Marine Atlantic says it will continue working with public health officials in this province and Nova Scotia to make a plan for when the bubble reopens. Last summer, the ferry ran on a reduced capacity before canceling its Argentia North Sydney service altogether. An Atlantic bubble could be a boost for a service that has seen a significant drop in passenger traffic.
We've seen our passenger traffic drop by over 50%, for example. And as we head into this summer season, there's a lot of uncertainty as to what we can expect. Of course, we don't know what the vaccination situation is going to be over the next 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks as we move into the summer season. So we're very anxious trying to understand exactly what our service will look like this summer. We've already announced that the Argentia service will be back. But again, reservations, people are still a little hesitant to make those reservations at this point in time because of the restrictions that are in place and the uncertainty regarding the vaccination rollout.
Well, the target for rejoining the Atlantic bubble is now set, but when can tourists from the rest of Canada visit? A new report today says the province needs to open up to tourists for businesses here to survive. The Premier's Advisory Council on Tourism released an interim report today that also warns of devastation if government does not intervene. Here now's Garrett Barry has that story.
Before the COVID-19 pandemic, this little museum was getting a lot bigger. Trading on the popularity of Come From Away, they started selling bus tours and bringing in international visitors. Last year, that whole program was sidelined, and this year, things aren't looking much better.
Grounded again. Add that to the list of tourism businesses that have left the market. According to a new report sent to media today, 10% of tourism businesses closed last year, and almost half say they don't see a future if they can't open this year. It all adds up to huge job losses, and the report warns without action, the tourism industry is on the cusp of experiencing devastation similar to the fishing industry in the 1992 cod moratorium. Their big fix? Turn on the open sign and let all of Canada visit by July 1st.
I mean, the operators know how to play it safe. So we've had a year, like I say, of rehearsal. We've all been in the University of COVID. So it is time. So July 1st, Canada represents, by the way, like 86% of the tourism traffic of Newfoundland and Labrador.
We put that suggestion straight to the Minister of Tourism.
What I can commit to is that those recommendations are already with the departments that are responsible for those areas. I'm not responsible for public health in this province, but one thing I can say is that they're working very closely with Dr. Fitzgerald and our team, and they're working towards ensuring that that there's a balanced approach and to ensure that those individuals that want to come to Newfoundland and Labrador get the opportunity to come here.
He says he doesn't have total power here, but pledges he is in the industry's corner and is open to their suggestion of more bailout money.
We want to make sure they stay open. We want to make sure that we can support them in any way we can. Some of the recommendations deal with supports that we can do very quickly. Some recommendations deal with budget requests that we're going to work on. And some others are in public health that we're working with them closely on that as well.
The operators say without a clear reopening date, they won't be able to make the best of whatever season comes.
So knowing in advance that people now can plan their summer, they can plan to come to work, not only just to travel, but that people are now going to be able to get back to work and build themselves a livelihood. There's so much uncertainty around that, so it's so important.
Garrett Barry, CBC News, Gander.
So the tourism industry is pushing to open to Canadians by Canada Day, but the Chief Medical Officer of Health says it's still too early to talk about welcoming Canadians to our shores.
We're still learning about how the vaccine will affect the transmission of this virus. And until we have a little bit more information about that, I don't know that it would be really prudent to comment on what we think should happen from a travel outside of the Atlantic bubble point of view.
Well, Nova Scotia is taking advantage of its low COVID cases with a campaign that asks Canadians working from home to consider relocating. The campaign launched earlier this winter and says, work from home, work from here. The creators behind it say the ad has been played on more than 140 million computer screens, mostly in Montreal, Toronto, Quebec City, and Calgary. The goal? To bring 15,000 people to Nova Scotia within the year. Coming up in about 20 minutes, I'll speak with several people in the tourism industry about what today's new travel timelines will mean for this province.
Relatively quiet weather today, but if we take a look at the current satellite and radar, we've already got some snow and or rain on the way for the southwestern portion, already affecting the southwestern portion of the island. And as we head over the next 24 hours, this main area of precipitation is going to head towards the Avalon, or rather towards the island, and bring some pretty significant rainfall with it. So we do have some snowfall warnings in place through central, special weather statement as you head further west, and then wind warnings for the southern Avalon right now. And then we've also got a number of rainfall warnings for eastern areas of the island, including the Niagara Peninsula. Now, over the next 24 to 36 hours, this is what to expect. Heavy rain for eastern areas of the island, and then heavy snow for central as well as the southern portion of the island. And as far as the timeline goes for the metro area, we're going to see rain through most of the day tomorrow, through a period of freezing rain and then over to snow. So after we see 5-6 degree temperatures, that's going to dip quite significantly. Things will get really icy really quickly. Then we're also looking at some southerly winds gusting upwards of 90 kilometers per hour. So I'll time all of that out for you across the province when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, we have an update tonight on CBC's efforts to find out how much money Nalcor is paying its most senior contractors on the Muskrat Falls project. The 7 people and the companies that represent them have given up the fight to protect their privacy, and their information is now public. Terry Roberts reports.
They're highly paid contractors, senior members of what's called the project delivery team, those responsible for finishing the Muskrat Falls project, hopefully by the end of this year. In December, CBC asked Nalcor for a list of those top contractors and their earnings in 2019. Last month, Nalcor released the names of 14 of the 21 most senior contractors, average billings around 300 grand. But 7 contractors complained to the Information and Privacy Commissioner, attempting to keep their earnings secret. But all those complaints have now been withdrawn. And today we received the full list from Nalcor of the 21 senior contractors, including longtime project leader Paul Harrington. The documents show Nalcor was billed nearly $500,000 for Harrington's services in 2019. He's been with the project for nearly 14 years. Scott O'Brien was the second highest earner. His billings, not much less than Harrington. I spoke to some industry insiders who say these are the going rates for major project construction. But what makes this notable is that if this project had been finished on time, this team would have been disbanded years ago. And remember the Muskrat Falls inquiry? In his final report, Judge Richard LeBlanc found that senior Nalcor leaders, including some members of the project team, took unprincipled steps to get Muskrat Falls sanctioned and concealed information that undermined the business case for this publicly funded project. Total billings for these 21 contractors in 2019, more than $7 million. But that's just a small sample. As of early March, there were nearly 200, mostly contractors, working with the project delivery team. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
This weather update is brought to you by the Healthcare Foundation Home Lottery. Order tickets now at hcfhomelottery.ca.
Ashley is here now to look at the weather forecast, and it was a beautiful day today in St. John's, but it sounds like there's a pretty big storm on the way.
Yeah, the calm before the storm, I guess you can say today. Temperatures beautiful across the board. Let's take a look at the daytime highs this afternoon, topping out at 3 degrees in St. John's. The warm spot was actually Corner Brook at 7 degrees, even hitting above 0 for Happy Valley Goose Bay, and then hovering around -8 for Nain, -2 for Lab City today. Current temperatures dropped a little bit, and certainly for Corner Brook down to 3 degrees. And if we take a look at the current satellite and radar, you can see an area of low pressure starting to move in for Labrador. And then if we zoom in a little bit, you can see that snow and or rain for southwestern portions of the province. Now, as we head through the overnight tonight, we are going to see that snow and or rain track towards central and eventually eastern Newfoundland as we head into the early morning hours tomorrow. With snow, the story for Labrador. After midnight, we're already going to start to see a changeover to rain for the Burin Peninsula. Same thing for the southern Avalon. And as we head into the morning, most of eastern Newfoundland should be seeing that rain. Now, Gander, you are on that rain-snow line. So as we head into mid-morning, we're going to start to see a changeover through to potentially some freezing rain or ice pellets. Just a few periods of that, and then over to snow as we head into the afternoon. Anything west of that should fall as snow. And then we get into that heavy rain for eastern areas of the island, certainly into the afternoon, into the early evening. And as that cold front sweeps through, we're going to see that transition through from ice pellets to freezing rain to ice pellets, and then eventually snow. That'll happen in the metro area more than likely somewhere between 9 to about 11 o'clock. And then as we head into the early morning hours on Saturday, that should change over to rain. And behind that, things start to clear out. Ridge of high pressure will dominate our weather. So as far as amounts go, the heaviest rain looks like it'll fall for the Burin Peninsula and southern Avalon. In excess of 50 to 60 millimeters is certainly possible. So combine that with high temperatures and really melting snow, we are going to see the potential for some localized flooding. So make sure those storm drains are cleared of snow if you can tonight. As you head towards central, we get into significantly more snow, 15 to 30 centimeters, and also about 10 to 20 millimeters of rain, significantly less snow as you head towards the west coast. A trace, maybe 5 centimeters, but some of those higher elevations, you could pick up between 5 to 10 centimeters of snow by the time Saturday morning rolls around. Here's the temperatures for tonight. It's hovering near or just above 0. As we get into that southerly flow, we're going to start to see that warmer air push in as well. Those winds will be gusty, 50 to 60 kilometers per hour. And then we're looking at generally just some light snow up through portions of Labrador. And then tomorrow, 6-7 degree temperatures in eastern areas. And then as far as central goes, you're looking at 2 to 3 degrees. And then we're going to stay on that cold side of this for the west coast. Just want to time that out for the St. John's metro area because we're going to see rain for most of the day, but as we head into the evening hours, temperatures are really going to start to drop. So it's going to go from really rainy to really slippery as we head into Saturday morning. We should see about 5 to 10 centimeters of snow by the time Saturday morning rolls around, and eventually those winds will ease as well. So that's a look at that. As we head into the next couple of days, temperatures are warming up. I'll have those details coming up.
Thanks so much, Ashley. Well, for the 14th week in a row, the price of gas has gone up in this province. On the Avalon, the maximum amount retailers can charge is $1.48.2 per litre, the highest it has been since 2008. Here now's Jeremy Eaton reports.
At the gas pumps today, a big surprise, with the price jumping 4.8 cents overnight.
Seem to be steady climbing really these days.
And he's right. Back in mid-December, it cost a mere $1.18 a litre, and it's just kept going and going up.
To fill it up completely, it cost me $100 and something bucks right now, which is kind of tough because the COVID restrictions mean I can't work either.
$1.48 too. If you're sitting at home and thinking, hey, that number's pretty high compared to last year, you're right. On this day in 2020, the price of gas was 92.9 cents a litre. So if you drive a Ford F-150 and that truck has a gas tank that holds 100 liters, When you fill up today, you'll be spending $55 more than you did last year. It's not just this province seeing the surge in the price of the pumps.
What we're seeing is gas prices are moving up in North America quite strongly. It's not just Newfoundland and Labradorians who are complaining about the increase in the price of gas. The price of gas in the U.S. has moved up 40% since November.
The price here affects everything around us.
You can't do anything without transportation. You can't fly anywhere. You can't move food. You can't move heating products. You can't do anything along those lines. So that is going to have an effect as well on the cost of living for all of us.
One reason, the Canadian dollar. In 2008, the dollar was worth $1.10 in the USA. Today, 80 cents. Another factor, the recent deep freeze in Texas and Louisiana, home to a lot of refineries, slowed and shut down production.
There's a surprise element that's in there, which is that the rate to which the economy, primarily in the United States, is opening up is faster than what people had expected.
While it may be a hit on your bank account today, Short feels oil and gas prices will continue to rise. However, it could be beneficial in the future.
From an environmentalist point of view, it's actually good, right? Because then it causes people to think maybe the big gas guzzlers are not what we should go with. Maybe we should be moving more towards electric vehicles.
While the counter at the gas pump eventually stops, there is no certainty when the rise in the price here might end. Jeremy Eaton, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, we mentioned in the introduction to Jeremy's report that we're seeing close to record-setting prices for gas. We're now just under 1 cent away from that record set back in 2008 when the maximum price of self-serve gas on the Avalon was just over $1.49 per liter. So if there's another increase next week, a new record will be set.
Gee whiz, you know, I mean, the operators know how to play it safe. We've all been in the University of COVID.
I mean, 80% of our visitors are Canadian. So that's really exciting.
We're all dying to get out.
Dying to get out and desperate for out-of-province visitors. Just ahead, I speak with 3 tourism operators who say, bring on the bubble.
Tommy, listen to this.
Oh, this is country music.
I first got interested in synthesizers probably when I was in junior high school, from what I remember.
I don't know if I would have released this album if it weren't for the pandemic.
I literally got just so involved with the guitar itself.
Well, as we heard earlier in the show, we could see the province rejoin the Atlantic bubble on April 19th. And today, an interim report on the tourism industry recommended that the province welcome all Canadians by July 1st, provided the current vaccination timelines remain on track. So what do people who work in the tourism and hospitality industry think of this news? Well, joining me now is Erica Party, who owns Rose Manor Inn in Harbour Grace. Colleen Hiscock runs Java Jack's in Rocky Harbour. It's a restaurant and B&B near Gross Mourne. And Kathy Hicks is with the Spirit of Newfoundland in St. John's, which offers dinner and a show at the Masonic Temple. So Kathy Hicks, let's begin with you. What do you make of the fact the province could rejoin the Atlantic bubble next month?
Well, let's just say it's the first bit of sunshine we've heard in a while. So that's good. I think any bit of sunshine at this point, this is where we are in the hungry month of March. It always was that way. So it's really great news, but it shows that we are ready to start moving again. And there's no reason that we don't start moving. So April 19th and is excellent. Let's go.
And Colleen Hiscock, what kind of difference do you think it might make to your business if the borders begin to reopen on April 19th?
On April the 19th, certainly, I always say that the bridge is up and the moat's protected. And so it would allow us to have a little bit more movement. Certainly out here in Rocky Harbour, we exist for tourism. So the population base certainly doesn't support all of the businesses that are out here. So being able to bring people in is, welcome news. And that further, certainly we would be delighted if we all have our vaccines by the end of June, and then July 1st, we could celebrate Canada Day with that full opening where we will see a lot more people come to the province, certainly because we're all dying to get out.
For sure. And Erica Party, what went through your mind when you heard about the possibility of reopening?
Pretty excited because for us, May 2-4 is a big weekend for us. And the month of May and of course June is iceberg season. So that gives me pretty much a month to prepare and start taking bookings, because we weren't even sure whether or not we could start taking bookings. I don't think a lot of us has taken bookings at all over the past year. So that's pretty good news to have a month preparation. Not bad.
And the tourism report that was released today, it stresses that the province send a clear signal of a reopening date so that tourism businesses can prepare and travelers can book their trips. How important is it for you to have that clear signal to know when customers will start rolling in?
Oh my goodness, it is so important. That is the core of our business going into the future. We not just Spirit of Newfoundland, is that the entire province has to get moving. If we are all, vaccinated by the end of June, there's no reason, if we're doing maybe some testing at the border, et cetera, there are moves we can put in place. And I think we as operators within the tourism industry, we have been a year practicing safety. We know how to be safe, and so we're ready, but it's let's get moving now and let's really start these discussions, because we kind of have been afraid to have them, afraid to go against, the public medical officials. And, just because health was a great concern and it still is, but boy, gee whiz, the operators know how to play it safe. So we've had a year, like I say, of rehearsal. We've all been in the University of COVID. So it is time. So July 1st, Canada represents, by the way, 86% of the tourism traffic of Newfoundland and Labrador. So we're not saying go out internationally and open it all up, just Canada itself. And Canada will likely be vaccinated by the end of June as well. So let's really start these discussions and not be afraid to have the discussions. And this is a good way to start them today. It's excellent, excellent news.
It is also a little hope for our staff, people who depend on tourism for livelihood is so important. So knowing in advance that people now can plan their summer, they can plan to come to work, not only just to travel, but that people are now going to be able to get back to work and build themselves a livelihood. There's so much uncertainty around that. So it's so important.
It's still really difficult to, understand how many people are going to be traveling. So we're still a little bit up in the air. But like Kathy said, I mean, 80% of our visitors are Canadian. So that's really exciting. And for me, I'm going to be focusing on things a little bit differently about retreats and trying to bring in the local population. So trying to convince people in Newfoundland and Labrador to continue the staycations and to come, to Rose Manor because of things that interest them. So not having to rely on the outside market. Obviously, that's right now, that's kind of a icing on the cake. So, we're moving forward with some ideas and waiting for that cake to happen.
I know that you have a GoFundMe page to try to save the Rose Manor Inn. You wrote on that page that you are now in critical condition. Could this potential reopening be enough to keep you afloat? Like, is this enough for you?
That's a good question. The short answer to that, Carolyn, is no. It's going to take a lot of hard work to get back to where I was. I was about to break even. This industry is pretty tough, regardless. So my overheads didn't match the income that was coming in. With that, local tourism is fantastic, but we're seasonal as it goes. We have one season pretty much to get us through the entire year. So it's going to take a lot of hard work and a lot of creativity and a lot of long days and long nights to get us back to where we need to be. So it's really, I'm hoping that everybody that cannot travel outside of Canada is going to put all of that money and funding into traveling within Canada. So maybe I'll get a 75% night rate. So who knows? We'll see. I'm a pretty positive thinker, Carolyn, so I don't like to think about negatives. So let's not go there.
Fair enough. And Colleen Hiscock, is there anything more that you would like to see done to help you as things start to reopen?
As we start to reopen, I have to say that certainly the wage subsidy is a must-have. And while it's not rich, it does provide some abilities for us to continue. We're still going to be half capacity, which means half revenue. So we're going to be still suffering some of the same issues that we have this summer or this past summer. The fees, if we could dispense with some of the fees, certainly in the municipality where we live, we didn't get any support at all. So even some support on the business taxes, insurances, like all of those bills will still come in at 100% when we'll be half capacity. So support in that regard. The federal government gave us the ability to get more loans, so we have more debt. So to continue down that path this summer, it is, it's so critical that we do open the border and allow people to come in, to get vaccinated, to make sure that we're all going to be safe and still operate safely. Some additional reprieve on taxes and fees, like we're feed to death in terms of being able to, even just to have a registered business in the province is, $100, and, you continue with all those. So some support in those ways would really be wonderful support.
I love your notion that you're talking about with keeping the supports in place because what's happened, we've not only just sort of survived through the pandemic, but we've also racked up some more borrowing. And I think most businesses have, in order to survive, you borrowed more. So you've got that debt there as well. And you've spent your savings, and you know what I mean, that you have for repair and maintenance and all that. We are in Newfoundland, and we're in buildings, we're in venues. It's not all going to be back this summer, no matter what, but at least, it'll be back. And the more time that passes, the more open we become for all industries, not just tourism.
Well, it sounds like there is some optimism in the air. Kathy Hicks, Erica Party, Colleen Hiscock, thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carolyn, for having me.
Thank you so much, and indeed brighter days ahead.
Well, in the years since the Me Too movement took off, the number of sexual assaults reported to police in the country has increased. PEI saw the biggest jump. The numbers of reports there more than doubled between 2014 and 2019. Now, here in this province, a 29% increase. Nationally, there has been a 52% increase. Statistics Canada shows the increasing reports spiked in the months following Me Too going viral. But the stats also show something else. There hasn't been a corresponding increase in the number of charges being laid. Sally Pitt reports.
Those who work with survivors of sexual violence say only a small number of cases are reported to police, about 5%. So they're glad to see more people reporting and looking for help. Advocates say the Me Too movement gave people the confidence and awareness to report their own abuse. It sparked a surge of reports to police in the fall of 2017 that's continued ever since.
People are finding their voices and they're speaking out against these types of injustices. and that type of collective action can be very, very powerful.
The number of reports to police in Atlantic Canada has increased dramatically, but the number of cases leading to a criminal charge has not kept pace. Police say sexual assault cases can be very difficult to prove in court, and in many cases, the only witnesses are the victim and the accused. Those who work with survivors say they face major obstacles to being heard and believed, that there are still a lot of myths and misconceptions and judgments that stop the justice system at the reporting stage. Judgments around those who don't report to police right away, those who are in a relationship with their attacker, those who were impaired and unable to consent to sex, and those who didn't fight off their attacker. Advocates say the justice system needs to better understand trauma.
We need to see changed understanding of what constitutes sexual violence. We also need to see the criminal justice system working to actually prosecute what sexual assault really looks like, not only what the criminal justice system is used to seeing.
Advocates say more training for police would help give them a better understanding of how victims respond and a better idea of how to do these sorts of investigations. They also say more thorough investigations would lead to stronger evidence and a better chance of a conviction in court. Sally Pitt, CBC News, Charlottetown.
Toronto police believe they're close to identifying the killer in two cold cases that go back nearly 4 decades. While they had earlier determined that DNA samples from the scenes showed the same person committed the crimes, the sample didn't match anyone police had on file. Now, as the Fifth Estate's Bob McEwen shows you, genetic genealogy has police close to finding the women's killer.
In August 1983, 45-year-old Susan Tice was stabbed to death in her Toronto home.
The body of Toronto native Aaron Gilmore was...
A few months later, 22-year-old Aaron Gilmore was killed in her apartment. Toronto police were assigned to get quick arrests in both murders.
And we're hopeful and feel confident that we can solve this murder.
But that didn't happen.
Unfortunately, at the time, they didn't have the luxury of DNA evidence. We didn't really start to use DNA evidence until the early mid-90s. And as we progressed, we were able to do more with less with DNA evidence.
It would be nearly 20 years before advances in DNA technology would link the two cases. Semen found at the crime scenes was from the same man. And now, another 20 years later, genetic genealogy may finally reveal who that man is. What began as a way for families to trace their ancestry has become a key investigative tool for police. And genetic genealogy has narrowed the DNA sample from the Gilmore and Tice killings from thousands of partial connections to just hundreds. And Toronto police are confident they are now close to identifying the killer.
We believe our genealogists at this point have identified the 8 great-grandparents of our offender.
We positively confirmed the identification of the person responsible for the DNA sample found on Christine's underwear.
The same process last year finally led Toronto police to conclude a family acquaintance named Calvin Hoover had killed Christine Jessup in 1984.
So this door back here.
Police say it's not clear how long it might take to finish tracking this family tree, but they believe it will be soon. A comfort to the Gilmore and Tice families, and a sign of hope for the families of nearly 700 other cold case victims in Toronto alone. Bob McEwen, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, the Fifth Estate's documentary, The Gene Hunters, airs tonight on CBC television. That's 9:30 in Newfoundland, a half hour earlier in most parts of Labrador. You can also stream it on CBC Gem. Public health officials are warning that contagious variants are threatening Canada's COVID-19 vaccination drive. The Public Health Agency of Canada says there are more than 4,200 variant cases active right now. Ontario has the most, followed by Alberta. One infectious disease specialist says it's a critical time.
We need close to 30 million people vaccinated before the vaccine is really going to make a big dent in things. Obviously, every day that we vaccinate more people is helpful, but There's a gap there. There's a gap there of at least a few months before we vaccinate enough people that it's going to have a big impact on the spread of these variants. And what we do in the next few months is really going to be absolutely critical.
Dr. Gardam also says modeling data indicates further measures will be necessary in parts of the country to keep the number of cases at manageable levels. He also says the more quickly provinces lock down, the shorter it needs to be. Well, Ottawa has pledged that every eligible Canadian adult who wants a vaccine will have at least one dose by Canada Day. That's a big promise, and hitting that target means vaccine delivery is going to have to speed up considerably. David Cochran shows us how the process is working so far.
It's just before dawn on the tarmac at Pearson Airport, and FedEx has just delivered 466,000 doses of the Moderna vaccine. The rookie cabinet minister leading Canada's vaccine procurement effort is here to greet them.
What we're seeing is that the provinces and territories are telling us that they are ready, they want more vaccine, and that's exactly what we as a federal government are aiming to do.
Deliveries are starting to ramp up after a sluggish start that saw Canada plunge in the global vaccine rankings, creating enormous pressure to deliver.
This is the most important thing I have ever done, and it is my sole focus all day and all night, and will be until we have enough vaccines in this country for every single Canadian.
Getting vaccines into the country is one challenge. Getting them into people's arms is another.
You arrive here, this is where people enter, then they'll go to the registration. So this site and the 7 other sites, we're estimating between 1,200 and 1,400 people a day we should be able to vaccinate.
Anthony DeMonte is in charge of the vaccine rollout for the city of Ottawa. This is one of the 7 hockey rinks or community centers he's prepped for vaccinations, with even more in reserve.
Right now the plan is from 8 in the morning till 10 at night, but we could do 24/7. We just don't know for 24/7 if there will be demand of it. I don't know how practical it is to come at 2 in the morning.
I'd come at 2 in the morning. I'd come at 3 in the morning. I'd bring my kids if that's what it took. What would it take for you to make that jump? I mean, do you have the human resources to be able to go 24/7? Is it just a question of supply?
Yeah, so it's a question of supply.
Supply remains the central question, especially with every province now promising every eligible person a single dose by Canada Day. It's what the Prime Minister calls the big lift, and if you do the math, you can see why. If you give credit for the 8 million doses the country will receive by the end of March, that still leaves 23 million Canadians who need to be vaccinated between April and June. That's 255,000 people a day, 7 days a week from April 1st to Canada Day. What keeps you up at night as you prepare this?
You know, we're in a situation now because there's not enough product and people want it, and we want to protect our community as quickly as possible.
Meaning DeMonte can't deliver until Anand does.
Being here and seeing the doses coming off the plane means that it is going to happen. Doses are going into arms in the very near term.
The European Union has imposed export controls. It can block exports if European demand isn't met. This Moderna shipment started in Madrid, then routed through Paris, then Indianapolis, before getting here. How certain are you that we're going to be okay as a country in terms of supply from this point on?
I spend every day looking at delivery schedules for this very reason, and we've got to make sure that Canada's supply chain is protected.
When do you think you'll finally be able to sleep at night?
I think probably summertime, end of summer. I'll be back to regular sleeping hours.
Until then, the big lift remains her biggest challenge. David Cochran, CBC News, Mississauga, Ontario.
On your street, hoo, 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 on your street. Hi, my name is Hallelujah and I'm 5 years old. I'm going to show you what I built. This is our minion that we built in the forest in our front yard, and this is all the kids around our community. And if you want to drive by and call him, I like to call him Bob because he looks like a Bob minion. On your street.
Ashley is back with a look at the long range. So Ashley, Saturday, first day of spring. How's it looking?
It's looking pretty nice, but cold. Once we get that system out of the way, the temperatures really drop in behind that. But looking into next week looks absolutely beautiful. Let's take a look at the future tracker. Time things out on Saturday. The reason why things are going to calm down is we've got this big ridge of high pressure over eastern half of Canada, really, or at least central portions of Canada, eastern half of the United States. That is going to dominate the weather over the next couple of days. As we head into the weekend now, we might see some flurry activity Saturday night into Sunday morning, but by Sunday, generally looking at fairly nice conditions, maybe some cloud cover, but overall fairly quiet with some flurry activity expected Sunday afternoon for portions of coastal Labrador and maybe a few flurries across the island as well. But overall, temperatures will be a little bit cool on Saturday, so into the -3 to -5 degree range, but plenty of sunshine, and then temperatures pretty mild, relatively speaking, for Labrador, -6 for Happy Valley Goose Bay and -3 for Lab City. As we head into Sunday, this is when the temperatures will start to climb up above zero and should sit there for a few days. So 5 degrees for Happy Valley Goose Bay, and as we look towards the island, again, that potential for a few flurries in the mix, but it does look like plenty of sunshine and temperatures 2 to 5 degrees above zero, a little cooler for the northern peninsula. Now looking into next week, take a look at those numbers. Very spring-like, plenty of sunshine both Monday, Tuesday, temperatures around 8-9 degrees. Gonna keep an eye on that. They may fluctuate a degree or two here and there. But as far as central Newfoundland goes, we could reach the double digits, it looks like, by the time Tuesday rolls around. Plenty of sunshine right into midweek next week, and then similar forecasts expected for western Newfoundland. So afternoon highs 8 to 10 degrees for Tuesday. Now up towards eastern Labrador, you're also going to get into some of those mild temperatures. Normals for this time of year around -3, and you'll be well above that by the time you get to Sunday and then continuing into Tuesday. Might see a few flurries, but look at those overnight lows. By Tuesday night, going to start to dip back down well below zero. For western Labrador, you're looking at snow through, or at least flurries through Sunday, and then by Monday and Tuesday, things will start to settle down. Not looking quite as warm. We may see a few more degrees than this, but at this point, looking at about 1 to 3 degrees as your afternoon highs. I wanted to share this photo. This is a view of Trinity Bay from Port Rexton. Stephen shared this great shot with us. I bet you a lot of that snow will be gone by the time we get into next week. Thank you for sharing that with us. And if you have any weather photos to share with us, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, we showed you one creative kid from Carbonear. Here is another. A 10-year-old from Saskatchewan has won a worldwide IKEA drawing contest. Her adorable sketches are going to be turned into stuffed toys or stuffies. Shoppers will be able to buy them with the proceeds going to children's charities. We'll leave you with that story tonight.
Mom found it online and she helped me submit a drawing. I get emails from IKEA through their IKEA family membership, and Audrey did her drawing just the one time and she was set on it and said it was ready, and I don't even think I had finished reading through the entry requirements and she was already done and ready to send it. Well, they're little peanut butter and jelly friends. They're little slices of bread. They have legs and arms and they're holding hands. Well, I wanted to make a friend stuffy, and peanut butter and jelly just seemed like the perfect thing. It made sense coming from Audrey because that's her favorite sandwich. She would probably eat that every day if I let her.
Super surprised and happy. When I won the Canada level, I got to donate $100 to a charity of my choice, and I was going to get a free stuffy.
So as a Canadian finalist, she got to donate $100 to a charity of her choice, and she chose Ronald McDonald House here in Saskatoon.
Now that I've won the whole entire thing, I'm going to get my draw I made into the stuffy to be sold in an IKEA.
One of the global winners, the proceeds from the sales of the stuffies will go to children's charities. So we're really proud that that's how it's going to work out. And yeah, I just think it's wonderful.